I think she brings a perspective that is varied across lots of different industries, but is uber relevant for the publishing industry as we enter an era of growth.
I've got a different perspective of what membership means.
I love her concept. I love her pushing back on some of our assumptions that we get a little insular and don't think about our customers enough.
This is a brilliant speaker. Was one of the highlights of the Pay Digital Summit in London, one of the most successful events in the recent history of INMA. She's Robbie Kellman Baxter, and it's all about what we heard today, sort of the overall theme that our customers are no longer the advertisers, they are the readers. And if that's the case, how do you go from a transaction to pay me to belong to my world, to membership, subscription to membership? It's difficult to get right. She's studied, she's analyzed how LinkedIn, how Amazon, how Netflix are doing it masterfully, and she's here to share all the learnings with us. The author of The Membership Economy, Robbie Kellman Baxter. One welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me back. It feels great. I loved being in London with everybody last month. And I'm excited to be back in this venue here on my home turf. We've spent most of the day today talking about the future of news. And what I want to do now is just take a big step back and look at that future of news through a lens of membership. So I'm going to give you all a chance to close your eyes. You can go ahead and close your eyes. No one's watching. I'm not going to dump anything on your head. It's all safe. Close your eyes and think about a time when you felt like a member of something, when you felt that sense of belonging, you felt taken care of. It might be something that you have a subscription to. It might be something that you're a member of a club for. But just try to remember what that feels like. There's a lot, you can open your eyes now. There's a lot of different things that might make you feel like a member. One for me that made me feel like I was taken care of was Netflix. I first fell in love with Netflix about 15 years ago. I was a mom of small children, and I loved that Netflix let me have 3 out at a time, 3 movies out at a time. I always had professionally created content. It was delivered in the most efficient way possible, which was right to my mailbox at that time. And it was delivered with cost certainty. So I was notorious for having lots of overages and late fees and fines and not being kind and rewinding. So as I was falling in love with Netflix, they actually ended up hiring me as a consultant, which was a huge thrill because I already loved their offering. And I fell in love with the business model. I loved that they seemed to be getting to know their users really well. Of course, I loved recurring revenue, which we've heard about all day today, kind of the holy grail of all businesses, allows you to plan for the future, allows you to invest thoughtfully, gives you a higher valuation with the public markets. And I loved the way that Netflix was focused on doing one thing really well, and that was professionally created video content delivered in the most efficient way possible with cost certainty. And as I was falling in love with Netflix, all these other people were falling in love with Netflix too. And I started getting these calls like, hey, we want to be the Netflix of music. We want to be the Netflix of software. We want to be the Netflix of bicycle parts. We want to be the Netflix of dental pain management solutions. And I was getting all these calls and working with all of these different companies, which seem really different, very different industries, hardware, software, media, traditional products. But they all had this one thing in common. And that was this focus on a forever transaction. And I started to call this thing that I was seeing, these similar frameworks that different companies were using, the membership economy. So what the heck is the membership economy? It's about 4 disruptive changes that are affecting virtually every industry that relies on a relationship with their customer. The first is about a move from ownership to access. The second is about going from one-time payments to multiple recurring payments. Then it's about going from anonymous transactions to a known relationship. And finally, it's about changing the way we communicate which is from one-way communication, where I'm kind of speaking through a loudspeaker and you have to listen, to not even just direct communication where we're going back and forth, but actual multi-directional communication under the umbrella of your brand. And when you put these four things together, you create a palette to paint new business models. And you start to see organizations saying, okay, what would my traditional business look like if I went from ownership to access? What about if I went from, I already have recurring payments, so that's not new. But what if I thought about relationships with the people I served? What about if I opened up my experience to feedback and community under my brand of like-minded people? And you start to see how this creates all kinds of opportunities. Now, it's not just about subscription pricing. Subscription pricing, you might say, well, these are the same things, but it's not, because subscription is a pricing decision. It is a tactic, not a strategy. Membership is a mindset. It's about how the organization feels about the people it serves. So sometimes people ask me, they say, well, our organization, we don't call them members. Or they say, we call them members, so they must be members. We must be part of the membership economy. And that's not really how I look at it. What I look at is how the member feels and how the organization thinks about them. Doesn't matter what you call them. You can call them subscribers, you can call them readers, you can call them listeners, viewers. Probably don't want to call them users because that sounds a little bit like a drug dealer type of thing. But the naming doesn't matter. Sometimes it's helpful internally for the internal lexicon and cultural change. But the important thing is the mindset. And the mindset is all about that mission. So this is not really a new concept, right? Charles Dickens had created his books and sold them using a subscription model to people he knew. Membership is how we feel in college with our sororities or our fraternities. Membership is trade guilds. They've been around since the 12th century. And membership is how we feel when we practice organized religion with other people that share that same mission. Membership is how we feel with our sports teams, how good we feel when we see somebody else wearing that same logo, especially when we're far from home. And membership, for better or for worse, is how we feel with our families. We're members of a family. So why am I talking about membership right now? Two reasons. Technology is extending an infrastructure that enables trusted relationships. So I'll say that again. Technology is extending the infrastructure that enables trusting relationships. Membership is all about trust. The other thing that is happening right now is that, and people have alluded to this over the course of the day, is, I'm from Silicon Valley, and venture capital infusions into the entrepreneurial market have created all kinds of organizations with very long runways, 7-year runways, right? And so what that means is they have 7 years to build a member relationship, a trusted, long-term, formal relationship with the people they serve before they have to actually make any money. So that puts them at a tremendous advantage against public organizations that are working on a quarterly model with an investor community that wants to see results every single quarter. So those two things are really what's driving membership across all sorts of industries right now. It's easy to understand why everybody wants to be part of the membership economy, right? Recurring revenue, golden goose, all of that, it's great. In fact, it's interesting. I have a couple of clients, almost every client that I have comes to me and says, we want to have a membership model because we want recurring revenue with people who don't have any other options. And I say, well, that sounds really great. I feel good about that. Then I ask them, okay, that's great. I see what's in it for you. What's in it for the customer? Blank stares. So it's okay. You do want to make sure that it makes sense for your business first, but it's really important that not only are you looking at what's in it for us, why are we moving to this locked-in member model, but what's in it for the customers. Amazon has a policy, a philosophy, where at their key meetings, they keep a chair empty for the customer because they want people in the organization to be thinking, what would a customer say if they saw how we were making this decision? Would this be a decision that we would feel good about if our customers were sitting in the room listening in? So it's really right there at the intersection of what's in it for us and what's in it for the customer. That's really where you want to be. When you think about what's in it for the customer, it's a great place to start is looking at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He was the researcher that came up with this idea that once our basic physiological needs have been met, these are things like food, Wi-Fi, shelter, things that you can't live without. And then moving up the ladder to mitigate risk, so you want safety, to be recognized as somebody who's a regular, feel a sense of belonging. So this is like the experience of walking into your favorite pub and having them say, hey, Robbie, welcome. Do you want the usual? And I say, yeah, I want the usual. They say, how are the kids? I say, the kids are the same. And they say, yeah, I know what that means. And then it's not even enough to be recognized. I actually want to be held in high regard by my peers. I want to be recognized for my contributions and for my accomplishments. And ultimately, I want the pebbles taken out of my shoes so that I can focus on reaching my full potential. I want the tools I need to be my best self. And organizations that tap into these higher order needs are the organizations that are going to have a better chance at building a long-term relationship, a trusted relationship with the people they serve. So at the heart of the membership economy is something that I call a forever transaction. And a forever transaction is that moment when a customer takes off their consumer hat, puts on their member hat, and says, I've solved my problem. I don't need to look for alternatives. And that's the moment of membership. So it's not about buying a certain product that we call membership. It's about the feeling when someone says, I trust you, you're solving a problem for me forever, and I'm not looking for alternatives. And so in the membership economy, that moment, that's the starting line, not the finish line. In the membership economy, that first moment of transaction is the starting line, and not the finish line. In a lot of other businesses, right, you get your customer in the door, and then you go out and you get another customer and you bring them in the door, and then you keep going. And once they're in the door, you don't worry about them because they're locked in. And that's not an effective long-term strategy. There are 7 tactics that I encourage organizations to use when they're moving from a more transactional anonymous model to the known membership model. And I'm just going to walk through these quickly for you, but I am going to be around signing books later, so if you want to come over and ask for more detail, I'd be really happy to talk it through with you. The first one is one that there's been a lot of discussion about today, and that's organization. So in the membership economy, the roles switch from being siloed to being more integrated with the customer at the center. And the metrics change. So I heard in the prior panel, there was a lot of talk about the fact that, just as important as acquisition is retention. And those are 2 key metrics. And then there are some metrics in the middle around engagement. So these are new metrics and a new way of managing the organization and a new way of focusing the organization on what's most important. Second thing is the funnel. So in a traditional business, there's a sales and marketing funnel, and at the top are, awareness, people have never heard of you. Then you give them a little trial, a little taste of what you've got, and then they transact, and then you're done. And you start at the top with the loudspeaker. In the membership economy, you start at the bottom of the funnel. You start with that forever transaction. If you don't know that once somebody subscribes to your offering, they're going to stay for a long time, there is no point turning on the loudspeaker. The two have to go hand in hand. So in the membership economy, when you're thinking about your sales and marketing funnel, it actually starts very close to the product, which means that the product team, the editorial team, the technology team need to work hand in hand with the marketing and strategy teams to design the experience. The next 2, pricing and freemium, kind of go hand in hand. Freemium is really, what role do you want free to play in your business model? And as we've seen today, there are a lot of different business models that can work with a membership mindset. Some of them have subscription pricing. Some of them have a freemium model where some people have a free subscription and other people have a premium subscription. That's where the word freemium comes from. And then there are models where everybody gets some stuff for free, and then there's upsells, down the road, and that's kind of a different model. But in any of these models, it's really important to understand what role free plays. So for example, a free trial is a taste of the most delicious thing you have. It's like a teeny tiny bite of filet mignon. And it makes people think, wow, this is so good, I need to pay to have some more. So you don't want to give them the whole steak because then they won't be hungry anymore. But you also don't want to give them hamburger and then tell them to buy the filet mignon, because they're going to say, well, I tasted it. It tasted an awful lot like hamburger. I don't know what you're talking about with a really fantastic steak inside the door. So free trial is a small taste of the filet mignon. Freemium, on the other hand, is plenty of hamburger. It's good, it fills you up, but it's not as good as what's behind the door. So you want to think about both of those, and you want to build your pricing structure so that it incorporates the value that you're generating from free. So what I often ask clients is, what is the role that free plays in your business model? Is it about giving somebody a taste of something because they don't understand what it tastes like? Or is it about changing a habit through freemium so that they get used to your offering and get to a point where they want more? Or is it about a viral effect? So freemium works great for viral. That is, if I have a free account, but I'm communicating with you and you learn about this service, and then you pay, I'm actually serving as a marketing channel. Or another thing is when the freemium customers are the product. So you see that with LinkedIn, for example, right? 97% of people don't pay LinkedIn, but if they weren't there, the product wouldn't be valuable to the salespeople, the recruiters, the job seekers. So in effect, we are the product. So thinking about those things when you're thinking about free and understanding what you're giving away and why is really important. The other thing that I want to say about pricing is that you want it to be simple for the customer. You want them to understand it. Now, there's a lot of reasons that people move to more and more complex pricing. And it can make a lot of sense in terms of, well, these people are consuming more than those people, or these people cost us more than those people do, or these people are more willing to pay than those people are. And so we'll charge them more since they seem to be willing to give us more of their money. But what I would want to encourage you to consider is that the more complicated your pricing, the less your customer is going to trust you. The more they're going to feel like they have to become experts on your pricing structure. So if you think about how many of us feel about the airlines, that's sort of the issue there, where I have to figure out, okay, well, I should probably buy my ticket on a Tuesday because I think that's the cheapest day. And if I change planes here, it's going to be $100 cheaper than if I change planes there. That does not do a lot for my feelings of trust and relationship with United Airlines. The next two, onboarding for success and being focused on long-term customer success, are really important. And I'm taking these from the software world where I grew up. I grew up with SaaS businesses, and they've actually been really leading the way on this. So onboarding is in the moment after somebody joins, after they subscribe, after they commit to being a member. They're already thinking in the back of their head, maybe I'm going to cancel. So I'm going to just make a little note to myself in 2 weeks to cancel because that's when the free trial is over. And so what you want to do is reassure them that they've made a good choice by making sure that they're getting great value during those first seconds, minutes, or days after they've started subscribing. So it's really important to choreograph the onboarding experience. And what I mean by choreograph is to look at people who came on and became great subscribers, great members, very active, doing the behaviors you want them to be doing that drive the most value for them. And then work backwards and say, what did they do when they joined? What articles did they look at? How did they set things up? Did they call us with a problem right away? Did they talk to a human? Maybe that's the secret. But really being detectives and figuring out what is it that distinguishes your best subscribers, your best members from everybody else, and how can you reinforce those behaviors? That's for the first couple of weeks. For the ongoing long period, you want to have customer success in place. And that's really about flipping customer support on its head. So customer support is about responding to a problem when somebody complains, right? If you get a call, there's a problem. We talked, I think it was today, I can't remember if it was today or yesterday, where they're talking about Facebook getting over a million complaints because people are so engaged and it's such a big audience. You just start to see these huge numbers of complaints. But what customer success does is it takes a step forward beyond just waiting for people to complain and actually proactively make sure people are getting value for what they're already paying for. So this is not upselling. This is not saying, oh, you're really happy with product A. If you buy product B, you'll be happier. It's saying, oh, we see that you bought product A. We see that you're using 3 out of the 7 features that we have in product A. Would you like some help to make sure you know how to use the other features? It's also about noticing when somebody's behavior dips. So we've been talking a lot today about engagement and different ways of tracking it, whether it's by frequency of visits, duration of visits, recency of visits. If you start to see those kinds of metrics change, you want to have an intervention. In the short term, if you're just figuring this out, you can do this, through real phone calls of real people, the way we talked about this morning. And over time, as you see that it works, you can implement algorithms to make it automatic. But the important thing is to notice when somebody's behavior is changing, because it means that their attitude's changing, and it's a pretty good predictor of cancellation. So you want to track, acquisition, engagement, and then the retention, which is kind of the big number. And finally, technology, which has been a theme for the whole day. And I love what Lucy said this morning about the importance of what you call things, and that there shouldn't be a person called the digital this or the digital that, because everybody in the organization is now a technologist. Just like in an organization, not everybody calls themselves a writer or has the title of journalist, but we all know how to write a sentence. We can all write a memo. The same thing is true with technology. We're not all experts on designing technology, and it's not the core of our job, but it is a tool that every single person in the organization needs to be comfortable with. So these are some of the tactics and tools that I hope you can take home and use when you get back. A couple of examples of how these tools are being used by other organizations. This is the Amazon River. I like to use it to talk about Amazon because it's a good reminder that Amazon wants to be the source of all life for all of us. What sometimes people forget, though, is that when Amazon started, it was just a bookseller, right? They had this huge vision out here, and then they came all the way back here to their minimum viable product, and they said, we're going to start with books because we know we can do that, and that will give us learning and leverage to allow us to continue to grow. And they've grown, right? They've gone from books to a seller of everything, to a creator of hardware, to creative software, to a platform for other retailers. And now with Alexa, they are actually listening to us wherever we are. And their goal is that if you say to me, Robbie, nice shoes, you get a pair of these in the mail right away. And then you can return it by just leaving them in your closet, and they'll just send their little elves in to grab them for you. So, you can see what they've done. A lot of this is through their membership, right? It's through Amazon Prime. Not just because it changed behavior, right? It made it so that it took away, the big, shipping costs, which prevented a lot of people from really engaging with them and making it a habit. And it's also done something else, which I think is actually more important, which is I think that Amazon Prime is a Trojan horse for all of their new offerings. So it allows them to continue to extend and deepen the relationship. And so many of us have taken off our consumer hat and put on our member hat and don't look for alternatives. And as a result, they've introduced us to, Prime Video. They've introduced us to Amazon as a place for storage. They keep adding products and services until they get to the point, which is, that point that was so far off when they were just a purveyor of books, to where everything that we need to survive can go through them. Another great example is Spotify. I think they're an example of a company that's using freemium really well. They're using freemium as a land grab to change behavior. So they have some pretty fierce competition. And what they're doing is they're making it available to everyone for free. There's a higher level service that people eventually transition to, and they can track that. But the interesting thing is they want to change our behavior. They want us to throw away our CD-ROMs. They want us to stop storing music on our hard drives. And they want us to have this, to embrace this new way of music, which seemed very intimidating to people a few years ago. And now it's becoming the new norm. So they're really in a very specific situation where a freemium land grab is critical. Another good example that uses freemium, as I mentioned earlier, is LinkedIn. But there's a couple of other things about LinkedIn that I wanted to point out, one of which is that they have a whole editorial team. So for many people now, LinkedIn is becoming a new channel for news. And I find this really interesting. It's not their primary business. It's another way of layering in value for the people who subscribe, who are members. And what is really interesting to remember, I talked about this kind of forever promise. What is LinkedIn's forever promise? It's about helping professionals thrive in their careers. And what do we need to thrive in our careers? We need news. So they layered in news. They've also layered in a bunch of other things like recruiting, and they have professional training. So I've done a bunch of LinkedIn courses. I think I have 8 video courses that I've created with LinkedIn. They have several thousand courses in their catalog to help people with their careers. They store your contact information, but they also have news. And it's not because they necessarily see themselves as a major news source, but because they know that news is really important to professional success. Another topic that I think is really interesting and useful here is the idea of a super user. So a super user is somebody who goes beyond just being a great customer, somebody who pays you on time, stays for a long while, helps other people, to be somebody who uses their own time and their own resources to help the brand. So these are people who help onboard new members. They're ambassadors who recruit new people into the organization. They're the people who create content. They participate in forums. They ask questions. They provide answers. And they're the people who give you feedback, which is very valuable, even though it doesn't always feel that valuable when you're getting it. They're the people that care enough to tell you what it is they really wish you would do next, and that can actually serve as a guide to help you grow and kind of as a flywheel for more rapid innovation. A couple of examples. So this is my sister. She and I look exactly the same from the front, not so much from the back. She's wearing a shirt. It says, "The sport of old broads kicking your ass has arrived." She's a CrossFitter, a member of the Church of the Holy CrossFit. And she has a full-time job as a psychologist. She has 2 kids. She works out at CrossFit at least 10 hours a week. They have a model. It's very, very strict. You have to go 3 times a week. You have to go with the same people. You have to support those people. If you finish your workout before they do, you still have to stay until the very end, until the very last person finishes their workout. So like if it's a mile and you're a 6-minute miler, and hypothetically speaking, I'm a 13-minute miler, you have to wait till I'm done. And not only that, you have to cheer me on because that is the CrossFit culture. So my sister does all of that. She pays the really hefty fee that they charge every month, and it is really hefty. And on top of that, she spends her own time and resources building the brand. So she has a blog, View from the Back of the Pack, which is sort of a psychologically tinged series of commentary about what it's like to work out all the time and still not be the best athlete. She also hosts CrossFit Driveway in front of her house with her husband on days when their gym is closed. And when somebody new joins CrossFit and they don't show up for one of their workouts, she actually calls them. She's like, "Hi, Tildy, I'm just wondering where you are. Because we're supposed to be working out right now, and I'm just wondering, are you dead or did something happen? Because we're working out right now." And so she's actually creating value for CrossFit. She's bringing in new members. She's onboarding them. She's showing them the culture. She's making CrossFit more valuable to the people who participate, and she's not getting paid for it. That's what a super user is. Another example, if you're in the B2B space, Salesforce. So everybody's familiar with Salesforce. They have a group of people that are called MVPs. You can't buy these shoes and you can't buy these socks. You have to earn them. These are only given to the MVPs. These are people who are the best at participating in user forums, who volunteer to speak at conferences on a regular basis, pay their own way to get there and then speak on the stage, participate in giving feedback to product managers about future products. And other than the shoes, you know what they get for that? They get the right to go to bigger conferences and participate in larger forums and talk to more senior product managers, plus the SOCs. So really what they're doing is they're doing this because Salesforce is important to them. And if you know any Salesforce administrators, you might know that they often feel greater kinship to the organization's Salesforce as a place to help their career than they feel about the organization where they work. So this company is their de facto professional society. So I want to give you 3 questions, and if you have a piece of paper or you've got your phone out and you want to jot these down and write some notes, that's totally fine. The first one is to think about your organization and think about what is that ongoing forever benefit that you provide to your members. What would that be? Is it about helping them be their best professional self? Is it about helping them look smart? Is it about helping them stay informed on issues that affect their life? Second question is, if you move truly to this kind of model that I'm describing, what would it mean if you think about, department by department, if you think about your own areas, what would it mean in terms of the work you do every day and the processes you use? What products, processes, people would have to change if you were thinking about your members at the center of everything you did? My third question is to think about it from the perspective of one of your customers. And I hope you have a customer or 2 in mind. And think about, how would a forever transaction with your organization improve their lives? How would it change their lives for the better? So, what I think about is if a group of people that were all customers of your organization, if it felt like members and they were talking about you, what would they say? Oh, this company X, if they went out of business, I don't know what I do because I depend on them for this and that. Because of them, I feel, I do, I have, right? What is it that you're doing? This morning, we talked about Intuit and how they had a product that actually increased farmers' revenue by, they aimed for 10%, and I think the final product improved it by 20%. You can imagine what people there say about Intuit. I don't know what I do with that Intuit. They raised my income by 20%. What would they be saying? What would your members say about you? What are you doing for them? What justifies a forever relationship? This is hard. We heard that all day today, right? Change is hard. The strategy part, it's not super easy, but it's a lot easier than changing the culture of the organization, changing the DNA. And what I want to encourage you to think about is what you can change, what needs to change, and what can stay the same. What are kind of the brain cells that guide everything? What is your kind of guiding principle? And then what are the products and what are the skills that need to come in? How do your services need to change? A lot of cells die off too. So what products can you stop offering? What doesn't trigger joining or hook people in forever? Because if it doesn't do one of those 2 things, maybe you don't need it anymore. So what does all this mean for news organizations? I think it means that there's huge potential to take what you already have, strong brands, trusted relationships, some experience in many cases with subscription pricing, and use that as a starting point to build hooks that really bond your customers to you forever, to extend the value that you offer so that your customers stay and don't look for alternatives. So it's really fun to be at these kinds of conferences. I love coming to them because I'm an idea person and I love, thinking big thoughts and what's possible and taking a lot of notes. And then I go back to, my regular daily job. And I'm like, I can't implement this. I've got a million things I've got to catch up on. I've got to-dos. I've got phone calls to return. So what I want to encourage you to do right now, because we're just all right here together, is think about one thing that you can do. And the way I frame it is, something that you can learn a little bit more about, research, a really small experiment that you can try. As we talked about today, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to program it. You don't have to give it to 1,000 people. You could write it on a piece of paper and show it to some prospects. It can be as simple as that. And then adjust based on what you learn. And that may take a couple of iterations. And then give it a launch. So it's time to just start implementing and testing and iterating. and think about something that you can do. I'm going to encourage you to think of something that you can do in the next 30 days. So if there's one thing that I leave you with, it's this. The secret to the forever transaction is to love your members and their mission more than any product or person or skill or process that you offer. By looking through the lens of membership, by taking that step back, we can all take a huge leap forward in terms of the value we create for the people we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for 2 questions.
Lots of people in this auditorium have loyalty programs that are part of their subscription plan. And we try to commercialize those programs by bringing partners in and having a whole bunch of commercial complexity because we want to make money out of that loyalty play. Is that getting in the way of the membership economy? Is that just another piece of the tactical problem that you see is stopping our mindset changing?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Robert. I think the answer is it depends. So having a loyalty program isn't by itself a bad idea. It does a couple of things. One of them is it changes behavior until the full payoff comes into effect. So it can be a gamification that gets people engaged in the appropriate behaviors that build loyalty. It can also be a true differentiator. If you have deals that they can't get anywhere else, if you truly are offering discounts or services that you can't find elsewhere. So American Express is great at this, for example. That's fantastic. That is really creating value for your members. But what I worry about, and what I've seen a lot of organizations do with their loyalty programs, is they just throw a bunch of stuff into the loyalty program, and they say, we have so many things, and they're all kind of mediocre, but we're going to call it a loyalty program, and we're going to just get as many as we can. I would encourage organizations to have 1 or 2 really fantastic offerings rather than having a whole bundle of stuff. I think, as you mentioned, it can be really distracting if there's too many mediocre things to keep track of.
Right, Robbie, we'll continue. Robbie's with us for a book signing, so we'll see you outside for the book signing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Was Robbie's presentation helpful today?
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. For me, it was the highlight of the day. It's so important to understand that that these are not only customers again, and that we have to treat these people as a member. For us, this is a culture thing. It's a really change. The change starts here. And the good thing, and we already discussed this with our colleagues, is to start from tomorrow on, when we come back and tell all these things from the book to my colleagues in Germany.
What I liked the most about her speech, her presentation, was the concept of moving actually from subscription to membership, because in Latin America the subscription model has been very developed in the media, in the newspapers, and they are looking forward to enhance it more. And now this is a totally different concept about moving into membership and creating community around it. Is what I like the most about this. That's why I got the book.
Was there anything in particular, 1 or 2 things that you took away that were helpful?
Well, I think the whole idea of really having the customer be the forefront is something we talk about, but are we really, really invested in that as a part of our culture and the way we make business decisions? And I think the book and her speech gives us additional ways in which to kind of raise that topic within our organization.
She's fun, she's lighthearted, but she gets you thinking, which is great.